The island of Kyushu had become far more peaceful after 3 years of rising Otomo influence. The consolidation of many samurai clans into the Otomo clan caused plenty of rival provinces to be joined militarily, with the troops that would have been fighting locally now gathered into large field armies that marched to the island's flashpoints on Yoshiaki's command. An alliance with the similarly dominant Shimazu in the south secured a guarantee of some relief from the civil wars, a relief that was calculatedly arriving at the same time as the new religious teachings. The conflation of the two gave the Christian missionaries a priceless chance to accelerate their work dramatically. And they would do so unsupervised for the most part, for the officials of the clan were focused on the events happening in distant corners of the island. They aren't going to back down. Good. They will make it easy. But why are they doing this? There was no reason to fight us, not alone. Some people like fighting. Some people are stupid. Some people own fiefs. There are cases where all three are true. So this is it. I've held up my end of the bargain. The spirits have seen it. If the boy was true in his words, then we shall have victory no matter what happens today. Even if not he, someone will see the chance we have given them. How can anyone step down from killing those who deserve to die? Hello and welcome back to Barbarian Masters. Right now we are fighting the Matsuura main force. We've got our own troops positioned on top of a hill from where they can bombard the enemy with matchlock fire. Pretty nice. So as they advance they'll start to discover all our troops. Most of them were hidden and they'll start to adjust their formation once they see what we've got going. We're basically just a long line of spears with the skirmishers behind. The enemy do have some heavy troops on their side, some samurai who are just going to charge right up the middle, and that's probably all they need to do because our troops, our melee troops at the front line at least, don't really have anything in terms of ability when it comes to fighting samurai, so we'll see what they can do. They've got some cavalry coming in on the right flank. Fortunately, most of our front line are spearmen, so a cavalry attack isn't very dangerous in this battle. In fact, it's going to benefit us because these officers are now going to be vulnerable. We can send forward men to start engaging with them, and their bonus against cavalry should help them overcome the fact that the enemy's troops are, on paper, far superior. So along the rest of the front line, the battle will just get started. The enemy have lots of katanas and lots of samurai troops, as I said, and in most cases they will have the advantage, so we need to do something before the fight goes on for too long, since we'll eventually lose it. The main play we can make is to deploy our light cavalry, who were hidden on a different hill, and now that the enemy have committed, can appear to raid them from behind. First we attack the enemy's bow samurai. They're pretty heavy and they aren't really knocked out by this blow, so that's going to become a prolonged engagement. I wanted to take out this officer, but he's run off to take part in some melees on our left flank. Fortunately though, their commanding general was killed, probably somewhere over here on our right, since we saw those officers going in earlier. So that's going to help demoralize the enemy, and a lot of the enemy's army is just drafted Ashigaru, so we may get a chance to get rid of them as a result of this. So that battle with the bow samurai will just continue on. It's going to take a while to bring them down because they are armoured still, a relatively formidable foe in melee. On the front lines, things not going particularly well. Some of the enemy samurai have broken through here and my archers have been drawn down into melee because they've made so much forward progress. I'm just getting them out now. And the samurai, fortunately, aren't really chasing them. They have the chance, if they want, to go and start fighting our matchlocks and archers in melee, which would be very bad for our troops. But they are just folding around and attacking the nearby Ashigaru line. And although bad for the Ashigaru, that will give us a chance to shoot some of those samurai with the bows and guns at close range. This general's noticing another hole in our line and charging his way up into our skirmish line. Unfortunately, the steep hill makes it a very slow advance. He takes multiple volleys of matchlock fire and loses most of his guards on the way up, and once he arrives his charge has no impact whatsoever. these archers going to get a nice point-blank range volley into his unit. He actually routed and tried to escape, but that was not successful. As you can see, the enemy's morale is going to be super low now. Most of their drafted Ashigaru units have just routed and given up the fight, and their archers around the back lines have been annihilated by our light cavalry, just going around killing everything. They kept coming back from routing, so it took a pretty long time to defeat all those archers, but we've pretty much got them all. On the right flank, things were doing okay because we had a unit of our own samurai to counter the enemy. So as we cleared things up there, the fight came down to just this central engagement where a single unit of enemy samurai is tanking our entire army. They're extremely strong, these Naginata samurai. Our men just can't kill them, but they're not going to be killing us at a particularly fast rate either, thanks to their exhaustion. And now the battle just comes to an end because the enemy's army routs. So much of the drafted Ashigaru are gone. The samurai give up on the fight, and that's probably going to spell doom for most of them because they were somewhat surrounded as they routed. So our lighter troops will have a pretty easy time finishing them off. That's the decisive victory that we needed. The Matsuura forces have been almost wiped out. We know they have a few more troops around that didn't take part in the fight, but the majority of their men are gone. They're going to be completely at our mercy now. It wasn't a victory we got for free, of course. You can see our losses pretty hefty ultimately, nearly 1,000 casualties, which is a pretty decent proportion of our army, and most of those losses were concentrated in our front line, in our Yari Ashigaru troops, and since they're all now so damaged, it's going to be hard for us to fight another battle until we've spent a long time putting this army back together and getting a coherent front line once again. But for now, we shouldn't have to worry too much about that. No major battles seem to be coming up, although of course we do need to siege assault this castle. And there is their second army. We can't see it, but it's out there coming in as reinforcements. Tons of drafted troops, basically. Now, the balance bar, somewhat in our favour, possibly auto-resolvable, but with so many damaged units in our army, if I'd auto-resolved it, it's likely many of the full units would have been lost. So instead, we're going to make the quickest castle assault possible, sending in our cavalry, dismounting them, and then climbing the walls, and that means it's going to be mostly up to our Hatamoto to make this assault. 100 of them, half as many of us, 2 each, if we're all feeling courteous. You don't need to do this, Lord. The infantry will arrive in time. But I want to, Lord Kobayakawa. If you won't fight, then stay outside and let it be 4 each. It is dangerous. You are not expendable, Lord. If you were to fall, you've lost your nerve. You and I both have more experience in combat than all of these peasants combined. If I had brought the whole army, they probably would have surrendered. Let them see the pair of us and think they have a chance. Then we take exercise. So be it, but let it be known that I advised against it. That's it. I've had enough of your whining. You will storm the Tenshu and shut the women up. Take the banners. North and west walls will be in sight of their men outside. Meanwhile, I've got 4 men to slay. While Kobayakawa captures the Tenshu for us, Yoshiaki, using stand and fight formation, will take on all the enemy's troops. Should be pretty easy for him because it's only drafted troops. All his men will be vastly superior, and my Katana Samurai arrive to also back up that fight. Although the fight didn't last that long because the timer ran out, of course. That's going to be a nice, easy, decisive victory. So we've taken the castle for pretty much no losses. No losses on both sides, really. You can see the enemy armies mostly still alive, only losing about 100 or so troops, just the guys inside the castle. What happens to the guys left outside will depend on my choice here, and I wasn't really sure what to pick. I spent a long time mulling over this decision because we probably should take it to punish the Matsuura, but I ended up actually vassalizing it, so rebuilding the Matsuura as a vassal to ourselves, and the main motivation is I don't want our main force to have to sit here dealing with public order problems. I want to move the main army somewhere more strategic, and possibly somewhere with ports, so we can think about going after the trade nodes we want to capture from the minor island clans. So with that planned, I'm going to start moving back towards our territory. I have to move through the Shoni lands, and that proves to be an immediate problem. The Shoni, our vassal, suddenly declare war on us. They are not going to let our previous war go, I guess, so even though they haven't actually broken their vassalship to us formally yet, they are going to betray us. All of our own allies and vassals will join this fight on our side. We are definitely in the right here, but there's nothing we can do to stop their main force from rushing South Chikuzen. They're going to take it easily, but at least we can see what they have. They've got a mostly drafted army with a few elite Onobushi troops. So as I said, we can't win this battle, but it looks like it's time to get started on the war.
Anything that was agreed in my name is now void. I am the head of the clan now, and I will decide who we shall be loyal to. Yes, Lord. I will take the scalp of anyone who even suggests we should bow to the thralls of the barbarians, no matter what magic they cast. Yes, Lord. The Matsuura fools have already fallen for my ploy. They will have crippled the Otomo thoroughly by now. Yes, Lord. Meaning everything they took shall be liberated by me, and the people will rejoice that the foreign nonsense is no longer forced down their throats. Yes, Lord. Are you listening to me? Oh. Yes, Lord.
South Chikuzen is lost to us then, and the Shoni main force already out in the field as if it's planning to go somewhere else after that. We happen to be in range of South Hizen right now though. We can attack from our hidden position and take their province and then perhaps draw them into a siege assault if they want to come and try and take it back. The question of course is, will they just go on and take our other regions instead? We might end up chasing them around the map because we don't have an army to stop them anywhere else. I tried converting one of their monks to Christianity. It apparently worked. I don't know if you actually get a Christian missionary for doing that. Perhaps not. You're not allowed to actually change the monk's allegiance. They just disappear. So anyway, we're just going to rush forward and try to take the castle quickly. I was going to auto-resolve it, but then I saw this army off to the east is for some reason in reinforcement range. It really doesn't look like it is, but it's managing to get into this fight. So as a result of that, we need to fight this on the battlefield and once again do the classic tactic of trying to take the castle from the small garrison before the reinforcements arrive so that we can be inside with absolute minimal losses and then defend the inside if the Shoni want it back. So I had some guys coming from the north who distracted their archers, while from the west and south other groups are just going to rush up to the wall and start climbing in as quickly as possible to get as much time on the inside of the castle as we can before the reinforcements come into play. And that meant it's going to be our Hatamoto arriving first once again, along with some light cavalry since they had the horses to accelerate their arrival. They're going to be followed by some samurai and some Ashigaru infantry, swords in both cases I believe. Now the enemy sent some of their samurai retainers to fight with our Hatamoto guards. This is a little bit dangerous because these two units are probably equivalent to each other, and that means there's a chance that they will win. We do have Yoshiaki who's coming in to help, so we'll have the numbers here. I need to get other units in there to support and perhaps rear attack those samurai. We need to break through these Ashigaru here. I've got all of my sword troops trying to do that right now. They'll probably do it eventually since they're going to be superior. But the main thing that's happening is that other troops coming from other directions will be capturing the Tendou, and that is going to trump anything going on in those battles, of course. Some of their archers realized I wasn't actually attacking from the north and started firing into the general melees going on over here on the western part of the castle, and because most of the enemies were actually killed slowly but surely, that arrow fire is going to do decent damage. We're not going to let this retainer get back to the Tendou. We're cutting him down because if even one guy gets to the capture point, it cancels the countdown timer. So good to just make sure things are completely clean, as it were, by taking out full units before they move anywhere else. And that's pretty much going to bring an end to the battle. That arrow fire still raining on our men, but we don't have to fight the Onobushi and the remaining archers, which is great. And even better, we didn't have to fight the small Shoni army coming in as reinforcements. Never really saw it in this battle. It was so far away the whole time. That's the end of that. A win with minimal casualties on both sides, but our casualties much lower than theirs still, and we will now get the chance to take the castle, that other army just running away there. So I had the option to vassalize it, which I was considering here because of the public order problem. The same thing in North Heisen, that if we take this place, we'll have to stay here for a while, or at least leave a decent amount of our army behind. And I ended up going with this choice because I do want to go and take South Chikuzen back, and I can use the missionary to alter happiness now that he's leveled up. He can go into the settlement and give you as much happiness as several units worth of troops. So with that, I hoped to leave this place stable while we moved on. Although first, it looks like we've got a battle set up. The Shoni are going to come and try to take back this castle, so let's let them assault the walls and hope that our archers and matchlocks can do big damage, which they need to because we're actually not all that strong when it comes to melee units right now. Interacting with King Otomo's followers has taught me something about the Japanese that appears to be universally true. They are subservient by nature. This is welcome, of course, for I need but transfer their service from a worldly master to a heavenly one. But when it comes to the practical matters of war, the matters that all Japanese obsess over without relent, it leads them into difficulty. In this case, I noted that Otomo's troops view their king's string of victories as a cause for great loyalty. That is what the words fed to me imply, but as the translator speaks, the look in the faces of the muddied infantrymen seems to suggest that they simply said what was needed of them. Thus their claims to one type of subservience reveal in fact a deeper one. And if my writings have done anything so far, they will have convinced you that the king himself thinks only marginally more of his own soldiers than those of the enemy. Indeed, he makes use of our matchlocks in a fashion that reveals a violent spirit towards all men. By the sacrifice of a unit of Naginata Ashigaru, we got a decent start to the battle by drawing their two generals into a fight off the north side of the castle, where we could use our matchlocks and bows to really damage their heavy troops. The enemy's bows were also shooting into the melee, and our unit was wrecked by this fire from both sides, but so were the generals. So both their daimyo and their supporting commander took extreme losses there. The daimyo actually gets shot to pieces in the background and disappears, although it doesn't announce that the enemy general is dead. For whatever reason, this second guy was their commanding officer. He was randomly killed as he attempted to come to the east side of the castle here, where his men are having a bit of trouble getting through our Ashigaru. We have the enemy outclassed in that we're using trained troops against their drafted troops, so they're struggling to break through. And of course we're just doing the tactic of buying time for our skirmishers to have more of an impact on the fight. So with those combined factors, we're doing decent damage to their attacking forces. Over here it looks like our spear Ashigaru are going to beat the enemy's swords. Going further around to the south now, we can get big blobs of drafted Ashigaru taking on single units of mine, which is okay by me because the enemy's low morale will soon turn that around and the enemy's numbers won't do them much good. Here you can see I tried getting the fight to turn so that my men weren't between my own range units and the enemy, and that seemed to work pretty well. We did big damage to them. They routed. A lot of them will be killed in the rout, and my light cavalry happened to be nearby, so they won't be escaping. We'll do huge damage to that unit. So that's the south side, pretty much secured. The west side is where things were going worse. I only had one unit defending this part of the castle, and that unit, as you can see from the ground, is almost gone because the enemy's Onobushi archers just decimated us from really far away. So I had to fall back and just not hold the outside of the castle at all in that sector. Back around to the north side, all of their archers are just skirmishing with our guys up on the wall, which is absolutely fine by me. We've got the cover, and our matchlocks will do well against their archers from this position, so we'll just cut them down over time. On the east side, once again, we did wipe out all of the melee Ashigaru who were attacking, and that means our troops can rush forward to attack the extra archers that were coming up from this direction, and this is going to be a very one-sided affair. Our men just slashing downhill into the ranks of bad melee fighters, and our light cavalry are going to be doing the same thing nearby. We are certainly going to be wiping out these units. As you can tell from the balance bar, we're just gaining a distinct advantage now. The enemy's morale wasn't high enough to make this siege assault a lot of the enemy's units will escape with men left over because they routed early on, or routed while they weren't completely surrounded and such. So it's not going to be an absolute defeat for the Shoni here, but still a symbolic defeat. They've lost both of their officers and they've lost a decent amount of their infantry body, although all of their onobushi are still alive, and that's their best unit. We'll still have to deal with them at some point. But that's a win for now. It means we're going to keep South Hizen, of course. We can see the results here. Our melee line is now even weaker than it was before, even losing a whole unit. So we're really low on regular Ashigaru, probably down to just 2 or 3 units worth of melee capacity in our army. I was checking the results here. I wanted to see how well the matchlocks performed, but I think it's skewed because so many of our Ashigaru got kills on routing units that it's hard to say. You need to have a stat really that says kills against units that are actually fighting you. Anyway, so the Shoni main force falls back, not very far, it's still standing right outside the castle. And as you can see down there, it's got quite a lot of stuff still left in it because of them routing early, as I said, including the onobushi, who leveled up from wrecking all of my spearmen in that fight. So we do need to do something about this army because it's still a big threat. It can take our nearby provinces which are undefended, and we don't want them to be slowly chased around the island by us. We want to just take them down right now, because if we can just wipe them out, we can go and take South Chikuzen and the Shoni clan will be done, and this war will be over very soon. That does mean, though, we have to go right into another battle, and this is a battle where we need to try and win in a fashion that makes use of our skirmish troops primarily, because our melee line is so weak. It's not going to be terribly useful, and it would be good to preserve it and not have it be even more weakened. The battlefield made things interesting because there was a big forested hill in between our two deployment zones. The enemy army, despite being the defender, is rushing forwards as the battle started. I thought they were coming to attack me here, so I immediately started moving backwards. I didn't want to go up the hill and try and meet them on that high ground because, as I said, I'm not wanting to have a melee fight be the defining aspect of this battle. I'm trying to wait for an opportunity to snipe away at the enemy, so I wanted to move backwards onto my own hill. I hoped they would come up and attack me and I could shoot down at them, but that's not really what happened, and perhaps that is going to work to our favour, as you'll see. The enemy just stayed on the big hill in the middle of the map. So I sent forwards my matchlocks, who slightly outranged their archer units, to begin a duel with them. My main objective, to take out their heavy onobushi archers with the matchlocks before the battle gets started, and being very kind to me, some of those archers started coming down the hill to have a duel with me.
A brash opening to a battle? To use common soldiers, you mean? Indeed. What use have they for such a reputation as that profited by battlefield duels? You think the Lord thought for a second about the impact on reputation or honour? The barbarian weapons those peasants out there carry testify that such concerns are far from him. It can be hard to believe he is a samurai at times. There are schools that insist victory is all that matters. By that measure, he is a master. I think the wounded men he sent to Nagasaki port would contest that. How so? If they even live, they will never see the land their victories built again. It's not true, all that. Well, clearly it is for the prisoners, but that is quite fair, so long as they are commoners. None of our men, though. I suppose you think they are all retiring to hidden farms in the mountains. A more reasonable explanation than yours. And even if you're right, if you were to go and acquire proof of it, I think you would find yourself subject to the very fate you protest against. Perhaps. But if victory is all that matters...
Despite the cover offered to the enemy by the woodland and their superior height, we seemed to be gaining an advantage in this little duel, and it actually ceased to be a duel as another onobushi unit came in to take part in the fight as well. We can do nothing but continue to fire back, although we are going to slowly take losses to the return arrow fire. Since the onobushi have small unit sizes, there aren't too many arrows raining down upon us, and we were able to destroy one of the 2 units there. It started moving away, and the enemy brought in some of their regular archers to take part in this fight as well. So really it's not a duel anymore, it's just all of our skirmishers versus theirs. And I'm even doing the same thing myself, bringing my archers over. Although with my archers, because they're not going to be very effective due to the woodland and the fact they're firing uphill. They're here mainly just to try and draw fire. I'd rather the enemy shot my archers than my matchlocks, because the matchlocks are more valuable and more powerful, and it kind of works. They seem to, for whatever reason, draw the attention of some of the enemy's archers and start taking the fire instead, so that's all well and good. Now I just wanted to show you the rapidity with which we can cut down this unit of Onobushi once all of our units start firing at it all at once. I think the archers are firing at it here as well, and we're just annihilating this unit. Their heavy armor does no good against matchlock fire, and as they get smaller and smaller, their return fire is going to become negligible. So that's nice, but the enemy realise what's going on after a while. As we gradually thin them out, they decide to cancel this ranged engagement and just charge at us. So now it's time for our little game to end. We'll rush back and prepare for a regular battle, bringing the archers to fire up over the top of our melee line instead as the enemy come in for a charge. The enemy have mostly drafted troops, as we've already seen, so that's not going to help them out in this little part of the battle. And although we don't have many melee troops, they are better trained and are quite high level. So that's going to mean we do have a pretty decent chance in pretty much all these melees. And what's helping out even more is the fact we're bombarding them as they come in. And here in particular, there was a little gap in the line where we could just cut down these katana and shigaru with matchlock fire, halving their unit strength before it arrives, and that loss will morale shock them as well. So they're not going to want to take part in the fight for very long once they get here in amongst our army. Indeed, the entire army starts to rout at this point, just right across the line. We're going to chase and inflict some damage on them, very nice indeed, and all their archers at the back will just leave as well, seeing what's happening here. So this is just an advantage we get for fighting drafted armies. We don't really have to do much to get rid of them, even though they probably had a pretty decent chance of hacking their way through all of our melee troops if they really committed. I didn't even have time to make this cavalry rear attack that I had been planning from up on top of the hill there. One thing to note though is that once again, because the entire enemy army routed before really fighting for long, a lot of it is still alive. They lost 5 times more than we did, which is nice, but the army's still alive. And I thought in Shogun 2 that if the army routed right in front of you and you just ended the battle, it would just destroy the army on the campaign map to represent that you ran them down as they routed, or they all just surrendered. But for whatever reason that doesn't happen here. So I was left with a dilemma because I wanted to go and take South Chikuzen back as soon as possible. So I decided to be very cheeky and just send some cavalry with Yoshiaki leading them to go and take it. But actually their second army was sitting here. For whatever reason I forgot about that army. I expected it to just be 1 or 2 units garrisoned and thought I might be able to very sneakily just take it. That's not going to happen, so I'll have to move away and now go into hiding because I've used up too many movement points to go back and fight the Shoni main army again. So we'll just wait around here and hope they don't find our forces. We can actually hide both of our armies in the nearby forest, and the Shoni will have to be very wary of ambushes if their main force is to move anywhere near where it is now. But before all of that, we have a dilemma. The Shimazu have declared war on Shiga. Shiga is the very small clan that controls the second castle in southern Bungo, our home province. So we can either side with the Shimazu and have to invade our own vassal in our own province. That's not going to look good. That will harm our already bad reputation. Or we can side with the Shiga and fight the Shimazu in a way that's not going to make use of where our forces are distributed right now. The front line as the war starts will be in an awkward position. However, being at war with the Shimazu might be a good idea because we're about to finish off the Shoni, it seems, and we will need to take down this rival. We'll see what decision I take next time. The lords of northwest Kyushu had gambled that the Otomo's luck was not unending. But their success was not the product of luck, as thousands of soldiers soon found. Battered by constant fighting, the Otomo army completed its tour of the region with half its original strength, and still, even in victory, was faced with yet more battles to fight as the Shoni regrouped and rumours emerged of a Shimazu plot to begin taking lands in South Bungo. But from Yoshiaki's perspective, their operations had been profit without loss, and he saw no reason why that trend should not continue. So that is all for now. Thank you so much for watching, and thanks as always to the Officially Devin patrons for making this video happen. Turns out the Shoni still have quite a lot of fight left in them, but Yoshiaki's got a plan to bring them down in the next episode of Barbarian Masters.